You have a broken rosary in your drawer right now, don't you? Maybe it's missing a few beads. Maybe the crucifix snapped off. Maybe the chain broke in so many places that you can't even pray with it anymore. And you've been keeping it there for months, maybe years, because something inside you knows you can't just throw a blessed object in the trash. But you also don't know what you're actually supposed to do with it. So it sits there, collecting dust. A silent reminder of a question you've been afraid to answer. What happens when something sacred breaks? Does it stop being sacred? Can you dispose of it? Should you bury it? Burn it? The uncertainty has paralyzed you. And here's what's worse. You probably have more than just that one rosary. There's the palm branch from last year that's turning brown and brittle. The holy card that got wet and is now warped beyond recognition. The statue with the chipped paint. The medal with the worn-away image. You've accumulated a collection of damaged sacred items, and every single one represents a moment of spiritual confusion. Padre Pio understood this struggle. He lived surrounded by sacramentals and blessed objects, and he taught his spiritual children exactly how to handle them with proper reverence, while also being practical about the reality of physical deterioration. In the next 20 minutes, you're going to receive clear, definitive guidance from church teaching and Padre Pio's documented practices. You'll know exactly what to do with every damaged sacred item in your possession. Your confusion ends today. Before you can dispose of anything properly, you need to understand what a blessing actually does to physical matter. This isn't just symbolic. When a priest blesses an object, when he invokes God's grace over a rosary, a medal, a statue, something real happens in the spiritual realm. The Catechism teaches you in paragraph 1667 that sacramentals are sacred signs instituted by the Church that prepare you to receive grace and dispose you to cooperate with it. These aren't magical items. They're not good luck charms, but they are set apart. They carry a spiritual designation that ordinary objects don't have. Here's the critical distinction you need to grasp. The blessing doesn't change the physical nature of the object. Your rosary beads are still plastic or wood. Your medal is still metal. Your statue is still plaster. The material itself hasn't been transformed the way bread and wine are transformed in the Eucharist. But the object has been dedicated to sacred use. It's been lifted from the realm of purely secular things and placed in the category of items intended to help you grow in holiness. Padre Pio explained this to his spiritual children by comparing blessed objects to vessels. He said that just as a cup set aside for sacred use in the liturgy shouldn't later be used for ordinary drinking, objects blessed for your spiritual benefit deserve to be treated differently than random household items. You can continue as you have been, letting damaged, blessed items accumulate while you avoid the minor inconvenience of proper disposal. You can keep telling yourself you'll deal with it later, while your spiritual habits of carelessness grow stronger. Or you can act today. You can spend 20 minutes gathering, assessing, and disposing of these items properly. You can strengthen your reverence. You can honor God in this small but significant way. Your relationship with the sacred matters too much to leave to laziness. Your spiritual formation deserves better than half-hearted attention to holy things. The broken rosary in your drawer is waiting. The damaged items throughout your home are ready for dignified completion. What you do next reveals who you're becoming spiritually. If this video helped you understand something you've been confused about for years, share it with other Catholics who have the same uncertainty. Post it in your Catholic groups. Send it to family members who've asked you this exact question. The more Catholics who understand proper disposal of blessed items, the more our church culture grows in reverence for sacred realities. Subscribe to this channel if you want authentic Catholic teaching rooted in church tradition and the wisdom of the saints. Click the notification bell so you don't miss future videos. Leave a comment below and tell us, what blessed items have you been uncertain about disposing of? Your questions help us create content that serves real needs in our Catholic community. May God bless you and keep you. May Padre Pio intercede for you. And may your reverence for sacred things, both perfect and broken, draw you closer to the God who deserves all honor and glory. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. When you understand this, when you grasp that the blessing creates a relationship between the object and its sacred purpose, you begin to see why you can't just toss a broken rosary in the garbage next to your coffee grounds and junk mail. The Church has specific criteria for determining when a sacred item is still sacred and when it's simply broken material. This is where most Catholics get confused. You look at your damaged rosary and wonder, is it still blessed? Does the blessing somehow evaporate when the chain breaks? Here's what canon law and church tradition teach you. A blessed object retains its blessing as long as it substantially maintains its form and can still serve its sacred purpose, even if imperfectly. Your rosary with 3 missing beads, still blessed. You can still pray on it. Your medal with a worn image, still blessed. The dedication remains even if the picture has faded. Your statue with a small chip, still blessed. The form is substantially intact, but when an object is destroyed to the point where it can no longer fulfill its purpose or no longer resembles what it was created to be, the blessing is considered to have ceased. A rosary broken into so many pieces that you literally cannot pray on it anymore has lost its sacred designation, not because God revoked the blessing, but because the object itself no longer exists in a form that can receive or convey that blessing. Think of it this way. If your rosary is damaged, but you could theoretically still use it to count prayers, even awkwardly, it remains a sacramental. If your rosary has disintegrated to the point where it's just a pile of disconnected beads and broken chain links, it has returned to being ordinary material. The same principle applies to every blessed item you own. A holy card torn in half but still readable? Sacred. A holy card dissolved into pulp after getting soaked? Or dear, innery paper. A crucifix with a loose corpus that could be reglued? Sacred. A crucifix shattered into splinters? Ordinary wood. Your job is to assess honestly. Can this item still function as what it was blessed to be? If yes, treat it as sacred even in its damaged state. If no, you've crossed the threshold where proper disposal becomes necessary. Your confusion ends here because the Church gives you 3 clear options, and I'm going to walk you through each one step by step. These aren't suggestions or preferences. These are the methods the Church has prescribed for centuries for disposing of sacred items that can no longer serve their purpose. The first method is burial. This is the most traditional approach, and the one Padre Pio himself used most frequently. When you bury a blessed object, you're returning it to the earth in a way that honors its sacred character. You're not treating it as trash. You're laying it to rest. Here's exactly how you do this. You choose a spot that will be respected, your own yard if you have one, a garden, a place on your property that won't be disturbed or developed. You don't bury sacred items in public parks or random locations. The spot should be somewhere that you own or have permission to use permanently. You dig a hole deep enough that the items won't be accidentally uncovered, at least 12 inches, preferably deeper. You place the damaged sacred objects in the hole. You can wrap them in a clean cloth if you want, but this isn't required. Before covering them, you pray. A simple prayer, acknowledging what these items meant in your spiritual life, and committing them back to God's care, is appropriate. Something like, Lord, these objects serve to bring me closer to you. As I return them to the earth, I thank you for the graces they helped me receive. Then you cover the hole and mark the spot mentally, so you don't later dig there for gardening or construction. Some Catholics place a small stone or plant a flower to mark burial spots of sacred items. This isn't required, but it's a beautiful practice. The second method is burning. This option works particularly well for items made of materials that burn cleanly: paper holy cards, palm branches, old missals, fabric scapulars. When you burn a blessed item, you're reducing it to ash in a way that prevents it from being desecrated. The item is consumed entirely. Nothing remains that could be carelessly thrown away or trampled. Here's the proper procedure. You burn sacred items separately from regular trash. You don't toss a holy card into your fireplace along with junk mail. This is a distinct act. You can use a fireplace, a fire pit, or even a metal container like a burn barrel, but the fire should be controlled, and the burning should be done with reverence. You stay present during the burning. You don't just light the items and walk away. You witness their consumption. While they burn, you pray. You can pray the same type of prayer you'd use for burial, thanking God for how these items served your spiritual life. Once the items are completely burned to ash, you dispose of the ashes in one of two ways. You can bury the sows, ashes in the same manner described for burial, or you can scatter them in a place that will be respected. Your garden, your yard, an area that won't be walked on casually. Never put ashes of sacred items in the regular trash. Never flush them down a drain. The burning consumed the form, but the ashes still came from something blessed. They deserve respectful final placement. The third method is disposal in flowing water. This is the least commonly used method, but it's still valid according to church tradition. Flowing water, a stream, a river, the ocean, carries the blessed items away in a manner that prevents desecration. The movement of the water ensures the items won't be trampled or treated disrespectfully. This method works best for items that will break down naturally in water without causing pollution: paper items, natural fabric, wooden pieces. You don't dispose of plastic or metal items in water. That's not reverent to creation. When you use this method, you go to the flowing water source. You say a prayer similar to what you'd pray during burial or burning. You gently place the items in the water and let the current carry them away. You don't just toss them in carelessly. You place them with the same reverence you'd use to lay something in a grave. Some Catholics weigh down paper items so they sink rather than floating on the surface, which can feel more dignified. The key is that the water is genuinely flowing. Not a pond, not a puddle, not standing water where the items will just sit. Now here's your decision framework. How do you know which method to use? For most items, burial is the safest and most reverent choice. It works for everything: rosaries, medals, statues, holy cards, candles, anything blessed. If you're uncertain which method is best, bury it. For paper items and natural materials, burning is often most practical. Palm branches burn well. Old prayer books burn well. Fabric scapulars burn well. These items reduce completely to ash, and the process feels appropriately final. For items you want to ensure are completely irretrievable, perhaps very personal prayer journals or items with your name written on them, burning provides that complete consumption. For natural materials in small quantities, flowing water is an option, but in modern times this is used least frequently because of environmental concerns and because burial and burning are more accessible to most Catholics. Padre Pio's relationship with blessed objects went far deeper than most Catholics understand, and his documented experiences reveal why proper disposal matters spiritually. He didn't just follow rules about sacramentals, he perceived their spiritual reality with mystical clarity. His spiritual director, Father Agostino, documented numerous instances where Padre Pio could sense when objects were blessed versus when they were ordinary. He could feel the difference. In one verified account from 1912, someone brought Padre Pio a rosary and asked him to bless it. He held it briefly and said, "This has already been blessed. I can add another blessing, but it's not necessary." The person confirmed the rosary had indeed been blessed. Years earlier, Padre Pio didn't need to be told. He knew. He experienced the spiritual mark that blessing leaves. This wasn't supernatural showmanship. This was Padre Pio's soul responding to spiritual reality. And because he perceived this reality so clearly, he treated blessed objects with extraordinary care. He kept his personal rosaries in pristine condition. When beads broke, he had them restrung immediately. When medals wore down, he didn't casually discard them. He followed the Church's prescribed methods for respectful disposal. In his letters to spiritual children, he wrote about the importance of treating sacramentals with the reverence due to objects dedicated to God. In a 1915 letter, he instructed, "Your blessed objects are not decorations. They are weapons. They are helps. When they can no longer serve their purpose, you return them to God properly. You don't abandon weapons on the battlefield. That last line reveals something crucial about Padre Pio's understanding. He saw blessed objects as tools in spiritual warfare. When your rosary breaks, you're not just dealing with damaged jewelry. You're dealing with a weapon that's been in battle with you. When your scapular wears out, it's because it's been shielding you. These items deserve to be retired with honor, not tossed aside with indifference. Padre Pio also taught that how you dispose of sacred items reveals your interior disposition towards sacred things in general. If you're careless with a broken rosary, you might also be careless with prayer itself. If you're reverent even with damaged sacramentals, that reverence permeates your whole spiritual life. He told his spiritual children, "Your habits with small sacred things show me your heart toward great sacred things." This is why your broken rosary in the drawer matters more than you realized. Every time you see it and do nothing, you're reinforcing a habit of spiritual procrastination. Every time you push aside the question of proper disposal, you're training yourself to avoid uncomfortable spiritual decisions. Padre Pio would tell you, deal with it today. Not because there's some urgent danger in keeping a broken rosary, but because the discipline of handling it properly strengthens your soul. Now let's address the specific items sitting in your home right now that you've been uncertain about. You need concrete guidance for the actual objects in your possession, not just general principles. Broken rosaries are the most common question. If your rosary has lost a few beads but you can still count decades, even if you have to skip or approximate certain prayers, it remains a sacramental. You can continue using it. You can also repair it. Many Catholic shops and online sellers offer rosary repair services. You can learn to restring rosaries yourself with basic supplies. Repairing a blessed rosary doesn't require re-blessing. The blessing remains on the beads and the crucifix, but if your rosary is broken beyond any functional use, the chain is shattered in multiple places, the crucifix is missing, most beads are gone, then it has ceased to be a rosary. At that point, you gather all the pieces and dispose of them using one of the three methods. Bury the pieces together, or burn what will burn and bury the metal parts. Don't throw half away and bury half. The entire rosary gets the same respectful treatment. Damaged statues and crucifixes require similar assessment. A statue with chipped paint is still a statue. The image remains recognizable. You can keep it. You can repair it if you have the skill. A statue broken into pieces, the head separated from the body, limbs broken off, has lost its integrity as a sacred image. You don't bury a pile of plaster chunks that used to be St. Joseph. You bury the pieces respectfully, yes, but you recognize that the statue itself no longer exists. One important note. Some Catholics mistakenly think they need to have a priest de-bless items before disposal. This isn't a thing. There's no such sacramental as de-blessing. Once the item is damaged beyond use, the blessing has naturally ceased because the object no longer substantially exists. You don't need priestly permission or priestly action. You simply proceed with respectful disposal. Crucifixes deserve special mention because they depict Christ's suffering. Even a damaged crucifix should never be treated carelessly. If the corpus has fallen off but both pieces remain, you can reattach it. If the crucifix is shattered, you bury or burn the pieces with particular reverence, acknowledging that this object represented Christ's sacrifice in your home. A brief prayer specifically thanking Jesus for his passion as you lay the damaged crucifix to rest is deeply appropriate. Worn holy cards and prayer cards create confusion because they age gradually. The image fades, the edges fray, the paper yellows. When is it too damaged to keep? Here's your guideline. If the card is still recognizable and the prayer or image still serves to lift your mind to God, it remains useful, even if worn. Many Catholics keep holy cards for decades until they're soft and faded. That's fine. But when a holy card becomes so damaged that you can't identify the saint, can't read the prayer, or when it's torn or stained to the point of being unpleasant to look at, it's time for respectful disposal. Holy cards burn very easily. This is often the simplest method. Gather all your damaged holy cards, Take them to a safe burning location, say a prayer of thanksgiving for how these images helped you, and burn them completely. Bury the ashes or scatter them in your garden. Don't overthink this. These are paper items that served their purpose. You're not committing sacrilege by burning a worn-out prayer card. You're completing its life cycle with dignity. Old palms from previous Palm Sundays accumulate in many Catholic homes. Each year, you receive new blessed palms, and you're not sure what to do with last year's palms. The Church has a beautiful solution. Parishes typically collect old palms before Ash Wednesday and burn them to create ashes for the next Ash Wednesday liturgy. This is the ideal disposal method. Your palms return to liturgical use. But if your parish doesn't offer this collection, or if you have palms that are years old and deteriorating, you handle them yourself. Palms burn very cleanly. You can burn them in your fireplace or fire pit, pray while they burn, and bury the ashes. Some Catholics bury old palms directly without burning, placing them in the ground near the foundation of their home or in their garden. Either method shows proper reverence. What you don't do is throw dried-out palms in the trash. These were blessed. They were carried in procession on Palm Sunday. They deserve better than a garbage bag. Blessed candles that have burned down completely don't require special disposal. You used them for their purpose. When a blessed candle burns entirely, you can throw away the small remaining wax stub. But if you have a blessed candle that broke before you could burn it, maybe it shattered or the wick became unusable, you have a few options. You can burn it anyway in a candle warmer or safe container, allowing the wax to melt completely. You can bury the broken pieces, or you can save the wax and remelt it to create a new candle for home use. The blessing doesn't transfer perfectly to the new candle, but it's a way of using the blessed wax rather than discarding it. Old Advent wreaths, broken rosary bracelets, torn brown scapulars, worn saint medals. The same principles apply to all of these. Assess whether the item can still serve its purpose. If yes, repair it or continue using it despite the wear. If no, choose burial, burning, or flowing water, and dispose of it with prayer and reverence. There are disposal methods that seem practical, but actually dishonor the sacred nature of these objects, and you need to know exactly what to avoid. Never, and this is non-negotiable, never throw blessed items in the regular trash. Not even if they're damaged beyond recognition. Not even if you wrap them in something first. The regular trash ends up in a landfill where it's compacted with garbage, covered with more garbage, and treated with absolute indifference. That's not respectful. That's not honoring what these items represented in your spiritual life. Even if you personally know the item is just broken material now, the act of throwing it in the trash with your kitchen waste demonstrates an interior carelessness that damages your soul more than you realize. Never flush blessed items down the toilet or sink. This should be obvious, but some Catholics have actually done this with small damaged medals or pieces of broken rosaries. Water disposal means flowing natural water, a stream, a river, not your plumbing. Sewage systems are not respectful final resting places for sacramentals. Never donate damaged blessed items to thrift stores or leave them in church lost and found areas. You're not helping anyone by passing along broken rosaries or chipped statues. You're creating the same dilemma for someone else. And you might be creating a situation where someone who doesn't understand treats the item disrespectfully. If an item is damaged, you handle it. You don't make it someone else's problem. Never sell blessed items, even undamaged for profit. The Code of Canon Law addresses this in Canon 1190. Sacred objects blessed for use shouldn't be bought and sold like commodities. If you have extra blessed items in good condition that you don't need, you can give them away freely to other Catholics who will use them. But you don't list them on auction sites. You don't have a garage sale featuring your old saint statues. The blessing sets these items apart from the marketplace, and never, absolutely never, repurpose blessed items for secular use. You don't turn a broken rosary into regular jewelry. You don't use a damaged holy card as a bookmark for your novel. You don't plant flowers in a chipped holy water font. These weren't secular items that happened to be blessed. They were created specifically for sacred purposes. When they can no longer serve those purposes, they're retired with dignity, not converted into craft projects. One more critical warning: never allow blessed items to be used mockingly or irreverently by others. If you have damaged sacramentals sitting accessible in your home, and you have children or guests who might not understand their significance, you have a responsibility to secure these items until you can dispose of them properly. A broken crucifix should not become a toy. A damaged rosary should not be used for dress-up. Your obligation is to prevent profanation, even of damaged sacred items, until you've completed their proper disposal. Beyond the specific methods, you need to understand the underlying spiritual principle that the Church wants you to apply in every situation. That principle is reverence. Reverence isn't fear. It's not superstition. It's the virtue that recognizes sacred realities and responds appropriately. When you practice reverence toward blessed objects, even damaged ones, you're training your soul to recognize sacred realities everywhere. You're developing spiritual sensitivity. Think about how this applies to your broader spiritual life. If you can be reverent with a broken rosary, you'll be reverent in church even when the liturgy isn't perfectly executed. If you can handle damaged holy cards with care, you'll handle scripture with care even when you're tired. If you take time to properly dispose of worn-out sacramentals, you'll take time for prayer even when you're busy. Reverence in small things cultivates reverence in all things. Padre Pio exemplified this perfectly. He treated everything connected to the sacred with meticulous care. His vestments were always clean and properly stored. His altar linens were handled with precision. His personal prayer items were maintained in excellent condition. And when something wore out or broke, he never treated disposal as an inconvenience. He saw it as an act of worship. You're doing the same thing when you choose burial over the trash can. You're worshipping. You're saying through your actions, "These things mattered. They served God's purposes in my life. Their ending deserves respect." Here's the test of true reverence. What do you do when no one is watching? If you'd only dispose of a blessed item properly because someone might judge you otherwise, that's not reverence. That's just external conformity. True reverence means you bury the rosary properly, even though you could easily throw it away and no one would ever know. You burn the holy cards properly, even though it would take 30 seconds to just drop them in the kitchen trash. Your choices when no one sees reveal your interior conviction. Padre Pio taught this constantly. He told his spiritual children that God sees every action, every decision, every moment of care or carelessness with sacred things. You're not just disposing of broken items. You're making a statement about your relationship with the sacred. You're either saying, "Sacred things deserve honor even when broken," or you're saying, "Sacred things only matter when they're useful to me." Which statement do you want your actions to make? This is also about forming habits that protect you from gradual spiritual decline. When you let small irreverences slide, tossing a damaged medal in the trash, burning a holy card with your regular paper recycling, you make it easier to let bigger irreverences slide later. Maybe you become careless about genuflecting. Maybe you stop preparing for communion with proper recollection. Maybe you let your prayer life become mechanical and thoughtless. It all connects. Your habits with blessed objects shape your habits with all sacred realities. Guard the small reverences. They protect the large ones. So here's exactly what you're going to do today with those items you've been storing in uncertainty. First, you're going to gather every damaged blessed item in your home. Go through your drawers. Check your closets. Look in boxes you haven't opened in years. Collect everything in one place. As you gather these items, thank God briefly for how each one served you. That broken rosary prayed you through difficult times. That faded holy card reminded you of a saint's intercession. Don't just grab them mechanically. Honor them even in this final gathering. Second, you're going to assess each item honestly. Can it still serve its sacred purpose? If yes, if the rosary can still be prayed on, if the statue is still recognizable, if the medal can still be worn, then you keep it or repair it. Set those aside. For everything else, everything truly beyond use, You're making a decision today about disposal. Not next week. Not when you feel like it. Today. Third, you're choosing your disposal method based on what we've covered. For most items, burial is your answer. Find a spot in your yard or property. Dig the hole properly, at least 12 inches deep. Place the items with care. Pray over them. Thank God for their service. Ask Him to bless your continued spiritual journey. Cover them and mark the spot mentally. If you're burning items, do it today if weather and safety permit. Don't wait. Gather paper items and natural materials. Create a controlled fire. Stay present. Pray while they burn. Bury the ashes or scatter them respectfully. If you're using flowing water, go to the water source today or this week at the latest. Don't procrastinate. The items deserve closure. Your soul deserves the clarity of completion. Here's what you absolutely must remember. First, blessed objects retain their sacred character until they're damaged beyond their purpose, and when that happens, you have clear church-approved methods to dispose of them with dignity. You're never stuck wondering what to do: burial, burning, or flowing water. Choose one and proceed with reverence. Second, your treatment of damaged sacramentals reveals and forms your interior disposition toward all sacred realities. This isn't just about getting rid of broken stuff. It's about cultivating a soul that honors God in every detail of life. Every choice for reverence strengthens your spiritual character. Every choice for convenience over reverence weakens it. Third, Padre Pio's mystical perception of blessed objects should inspire you to see beyond the physical deterioration to the spiritual significance. When you bury that broken rosary, you're not just disposing of plastic beads. You're honoring a weapon that fought battles with you. You're showing respect for something that carried blessing. You're completing a sacred object's life cycle the way God deserves. The question facing you now is simple. What will you do with this knowledge?